The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're open line today. Call 66 1368. Text 166 177. WhatsApp 166 177. And email studio@manxradio.com. If you wish, by the way, you can send a voice message on WhatsApp as well. So the floor is yours, whatever you want to talk about. First of all, David's with us on Mannin Line. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. I'm speaking as an individual, but I may wander into certain things which may be politics or whatever, so I'm sure you'll hold me back. But the issue I've got at the minute, which I've sent some, or you've seen the paperwork regarding freedom of information requests and access to information government departments are holding on you, or could be local authority or private individuals. And I'm astounded listening to actually Isle of Man TV, and it's given me an insight with Paul and Robert Shaw talking about the issues they're having. Mine are really probably very minor, but it's the same issue. The access to information and from the Department of DOI, who was the former Minister, Chris Thomas. I've received papers which you've seen, and at the top of the page it says hi, and then the whole page is redacted on it, and I've got another one which says briefing note, and then the whole page is redacted.
And now, is there any explanation as to why? Because it just looks like, it looks like somebody's been at it with a felt tip pen.
Well, it must have cost them.
You can't see a thing.
Well, it must have cost them a £5 for buying three pens to blank them out. And I just wonder, because when you listen to Paul's interview, the second one, regarding his little issue with access to information there too, and then Chris Robertshaw saying, and I forgot what the term is now, when people departments are cleansing information, because I wonder whether they're all panicking now because of the issue to do with the health service and that compensation claim now, whether their government now have all gone back into their shells, and certain individuals as well. And I've done data subject access requests on some individuals. They've responded. My own local authority has responded, it's fine. And I've actually asked one of the MHKs that I've served a notice on them about it. Still no response back. But anyway, there's another week to happen on it. But my concern out here is to people. I may not be the only one, and I'm not trying to dig up all sorts, but when allegations are made against an individual, you have a right to defend yourself if allegations are made, and then they're hidden in a redacted information from the DOI. Is that fair?
Well, the whole point is that everything is supposed to be transparent. There are certain caveats, commercial confidentialities, matters of national security. You can understand that. But, we either have access to information or we don't.
Correct. And that's the issue. The other thing is the information department. I'm not blaming them because we haven't got a leader and we haven't got a second in command. And then you're relying on, I don't know how many staff are there, to tell you the truth. The girl was quite helpful, but it's when you want answers to certain things or you want to have a chat and a talk, you can always send a complaint into the guy and they would send it into the UK where he's based. I mean, is that something we should be doing? Is that something that the Isle of Man needs to have, need to do in this day and age, in a set of rules where ministers should be open and transparent, members should be open and transparent of both parliaments, whether that's the Keys or the Legislative Council? And that's my issue. And I'd like to see if anybody else has had issues where whole pages of documentation, or you get a one that says Mr. Quirk said, and you don't even know what Mr. Quirk said, and it goes down the bottom, then somebody then is complained. It's so obvious. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and becoming like Inspector Clouseau, trying to put all the pieces together. And we'll find out who they are. There's no doubt about that. But they haven't got the not the foresight. Well, we'll say the guts. We'll say it's that.
Well, the fact is, let's just put cards on the table. If somebody said something about you, and you want to gain information as to paper trails and correspondence trails about things that have been said at an official level, surely you should have the right to see those. Yes,
it used to happen. So I've got some information when I was in Parliament. When all the people were there, they were quite. They told you the full story. The other thing that really annoys me too, and I think Robert Shaw and Paul's hit it on the head from Manx TV. There is, it doesn't even tell you the date. The date's blanked out, and the subject matter. Now, on an email, normally it says who it went to. And the date of the thing, because at least then you can go across with correspondence and say, oh, it's definitely him or her that's actually sent the complaint in, and have a right to who's the person who's complaining to face them and say, well, what is the complaint? What are you trying to say? Have you got it wrong? Which, I think in these two particular cases they have. But nobody seems to want to say, I'm sorry, or apologise.
So, interesting. It must feel like walking around a maze blindfold, knowing that somebody said something somewhere, and you don't know what they've said, to whom, and when it was.
Well, I'm sure I'll get there. Even if it takes me a couple of months, I'm sure I'll get there, because the new appointee that looks in the UK, I've already written half of a complaint on that, and then, because you've got to, again, you get the information, don't you? I'll use the DOI because they're a bigger department on that. The DOI guy sent me all this stuff. It was about 32 pages of it. He was the one who, some of it was totally redacted. Because I'm a local authority member, I know something was said by other departments within the DOI because of privilege. I've seen an email which included me in it, and so I know it's there. So why would the DOI chief executive or the data protection person that's in there blank things out, which I already know where they came from and what was said?
We'll see. Okay, David.
See you, mate.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Steve's with us on Mannin Line now. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Andy. It's about the access to cash survey that the government have put out.
Yes.
It's an online survey, so it's a bias survey. It's unfair. People that are not online don't get a chance to take part in it, and the ones that aren't online, most of them don't even know anything about it.
So why do you think that's happened?
Well, I think the government are wanting to engineer their own result. They want a cashless society. I think it's a lot to do with our chief minister rubbing shoulders with the WEF.
So, is it definitely going to happen, do you think, or do you think this is just advisory?
Well, I don't know. I know it's talk about it all over the world, going cashless and digital ID and what have you. So I just think it's unfair that it's online. It should be a door-to-door survey so everybody has a chance to say what they want.
OK, well, in that case, today, Steve, I'm going to be the Chief Minister, and I'll say, Steve, why do you want to use cash?
Well, for lots of reasons, mainly for the last bit of freedom we have left. We take away cash, we're totally controlled. And if the internet goes down or anything like that, everybody's screwed, really, aren't they?
Interesting. OK, all right, Steve, we appreciate that. Thanks for putting that point out.
Cheers.
Good to hear from you. 16 minutes past 12. I don't know whether you filled in this survey about going cashless, or how much do you use cash these days? And genuinely, how much do you use cash? Do you feel happier walking around, with a few £20 notes in your purse or in your wallet or in your pocket? Does it give you a sense of freedom if you do that? Do you like using cash, or do you? And is this perhaps a generational thing? is it that people who are younger are far more used to operating stuff? You see people using their phones, paying by their phones, and not scrambling with pennies and pound notes in there. So what do you think? Text, email, call, WhatsApp. Do you think this, is it right that we should go cashless? Do you think it's a good idea? I want to go to, I'll tell you what I do need to tell you about first of all, and it's about these things that were damaged yesterday. Police are appealing for information. 2 parked cars were damaged on Kingswood Grove in Douglas. Police say that another vehicle collided with them sometime between 1 and 2 Sunday 30th of July. Now, if you got information, perhaps if you got dash cam footage, call police headquarters 631212. That's Kingswood Grove, Sunday 30th of July. If you go to manxradio.com, there's some photos. They're blue. One's a blue vehicle that got bashed on the offside front wing. And if you've got dashcam footage of Kingswood Grove, Sunday the 30th of July between 1 and 2, police would love to hear from you. 631212. Betty's on that. Do you use cash, Betty?
Yes, sometimes, but actually what I phoned about is Age Concern have got some leaflets that people can sign to say whether they want the cash or not. I don't know whether they photocopied them or what, but they were there last week.
And where did you see them? Whereabouts? Which Age Concern?
The one in Ramsey.
Okay. Oh, in Parliament Street?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. You're off out, are you, Betty?
Sorry? No. I was just in the middle of doing something. But that's all I rang about. And yes, I think we should keep cash. I don't use it all the time. I do use card as well, but I definitely think it's something that we need to have.
When was the last time you wrote a cheque, Betty?
Recently, actually. Last week.
How many cheques do you write? Do you think you write nowadays?
Not as many as I used to do, certainly, but I do write cheques every so often, probably once a month or something.
Okay. All right, Betty, thanks for calling.
Okay, all right.
All right, good to hear from you. I mentioned dashcam footage on Kingswood Grove in Douglas, Sunday 30th between 1 and 2 p.m. And also, police want some dashcam footage. There was an incident of criminal damage at Quarterbridge Pub in Douglas, Wednesday 2nd, last Wednesday. If you've got dashcam footage in the area between 10:40 p.m. and 10:50 p.m., you're asked to contact police headquarters on 631212. That's 10:40 and 10:50 p.m. last Wednesday the 2nd. Criminal damage at the Quarterbridge Public House. 631212. Juan's on. Do you use cash, Juan?
you know the answer to that question, I'm sure. You know what? The funny thing was, I'm glad that the previous caller picked up on it, as I mentioned last week about the consultation paper. And consultation papers, they have a habit of making it awkward for people, and they ask the right questions so they get the right answers for their consultation. But I've noticed this weekend a lot more adults are actually using cash. And a lot of kids, and I'm talking like young kids, 10, 11-year-olds, are now using cards to pay for their little bits and pieces, which I think, 10, 15 years ago, it used to be an embarrassment to go and pay £2 on a card or £1. You used to feel, oh my God, that's a bit silly, but they've gone that American way, and they are educating kids into using cards. But the importance of cash, I think, is very important, and I think quite a few adults now are realising that it's beneficial to keep cash in the system. The government don't want it, and the banks don't want it, because the digital control is obviously what they want. That's where the world is heading, and the only people that can stop that is us. Because if the tipping point of 20%, if everyone starts using cash and says that they want to keep it, it's very hard for them not to then. And I do believe that it is one of the last bastions of our freedom, along with freedom of speech. Once them two go, I think we've got issues.
They will probably say, and I've heard governments say this, that the less cash that there is, then you lower the risk of counterfeiting, and also it squeezes criminals.
You see, they can engineer it to be that way anyway. I mean, you can change the narrative to suit whatever. The criminals will just move on to digital and exploit that. So you're not going to stop it. They just move on to something else. I noticed, and just a comparison for people in the States, I think 50% of people are on food stamps in America. So it's a heavy amount. And what they've done there now to save embarrassment of food stamps, they load a card up for them, if you will, like a debit card, which they choose a supermarket and they can go and get their food. So you are then controlled, and rightly so, you're controlled to what you buy with it, your staple diet. So if you went up with a bottle of vodka or beer, it wouldn't process. So the state money only buys you the money to live on. The point I'm getting at is when they go up there and that card denies them certain things, what if that transfers to us normal going people, that we all of a sudden go up for something and say, all right, we're going to have 2 steaks today. And they go, sorry, you're up to your carbon credit limit. You can't buy any steaks today. And that's the dangerous part, is your money is not in your power anymore. That's the danger that I see this happening. And when you look at certain things that they're talking about making it into digital vouchers, obviously the government would love this, because then they can make a voucher go out of date. So you only are allowed to keep so much money, and then the rest of it you'd have to spend. Imagine the control they'd have over the economy then. So I do think it's very important that people sign these consultations and actually use money more frequently. I do think it's a very important part of our freedom, and along with the freedom of speech. The other point I wanted to make before you close me down, Andy, is I'm glad that the point I made yesterday on the sex education is being brought up, and Tim Glover and Jason Morehouse, I was interested to hear their take on it yesterday, and listening to a lot of people involved in teaching and in this. These people are tied. Their hands are tied in government, the teachers and stuff. A lot of people don't want to teach this stuff. They have no choice because their job's on the line. So it's down to the likes of me and other people to stand up and voice this, because they can't say it. And I seem to think that government are complicit in their silence in this, by not wanting to engage with the public about this policy and this sex education. It's very, very quiet. And as Jason pointed out yesterday, which has been my point, there's no answers. There's no transparency, and there's no answers. We're coming close to a new school season, and they are delaying this as long as possible.
Well, as you say, the new term starts. I think it's 4 weeks tomorrow. The new term starts.
And that's concerning. I don't understand what's taken so long. First of all, I don't understand why there was an investigation. It's quite clear that they've taken on an agenda from Scotland and they're running with it. And I think they've been caught with their pants down, and they thought they were going to get away with it. When you say, Ewan, that you know teachers don't want to teach it, how do you know that teachers don't want to teach it? Because I've spoke to teachers, Andy, and I'm not saying all of them, but the teachers I've spoke to, and I talk to people and I ask them questions and I get their points of view. And there is people who don't agree with this. They don't want to teach it. But if they turn around and said they didn't, their jobs would be in jeopardy, and everyone who earns a living has to consider that. That's why some people haven't got a voice on here, because their jobs, say, don't want you talking that kind of stuff. So we understand that. That's why there's certain people can speak and there's certain people can't. And I do think this is, again, concerning, that you're taking on these agendas. And if we look worldwide, it's like your man's just said about the cash situation. These things are worldwide. If you go and look for this stuff all over, through Rumble and any of these places, the amount of parents and teachers that are meetings in America, all over the country, Europe, England, this is a problem. And this transgenderism is a very, very finite minority of people. And this agenda is being pushed by whatever reason, and I don't know why, but there's certainly a lot of money behind it. And I come back to my point is the difference between acceptance and promotion. And I'm all for acceptance and people being who they want to be. But promoting this at that age, at vulnerable ages, not good for mental health.
Okay.
And again, the money trail. Follow the money trail again. Follow the money trail.
All right. Okay, Ewan, thanks for that.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers now. And a note in from Anne. She said, you said that if you went from cash to cards and preloaded cards, that would stop counterfeiting. But what is hacking apart from counterfeiting? You can hack into digital money. Well, that's a good point. Martin's with us now. Hi, Martin.
Hello, Andy. How are we doing?
Good, thanks.
I'm just wanting to touch on a point you raised where government are apparently saying that going cashless would drive down criminality and opportunities for criminals and counterfeiting and such. Last year, digital fraud was around £23 billion just in the UK. Now, that far exceeds many, many times the height of any cash robberies back in the 80s and 90s. So digitalisation is actually feeding criminality. It is providing criminal networks with a plethora of opportunities to steal people's money.
So criminals don't have to go to the bother of counterfeiting printing plates to print notes. They can just do it digitally, you reckon?
Absolutely. Well, they are doing £23 billion of it last year alone, just in the UK.
So what do you think about the Isle of Man? This survey then about going cashless on the Isle of Man. Where do you think that would? Do you think it's going to happen? First of all,
well, I certainly hope it doesn't happen because going digitalised provides a massive amount of control to both the government and the banks. And if we learned nothing from the 2008 and lead up to the 2008 financial crisis, it should have been that banks care about nothing but their profits and their bonuses. They don't care about society. They don't care about the economy. They were happy to crash the economy worldwide in pursuit of their bonuses and profits. The proof is in the pudding. They proved that.
Okay.
So giving that level of control to banks is absurd.
Okay, Martin, thanks for that point today.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Suzanne joins us now. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello. Well, I just have a tiny little point. Well, I find, I'm a pensioner on a modest pension, but I do manage. And I find that if I spend on daily sort of expenses, if I spend cash, it gives me a great amount of discipline because it can actually see and feel the money leaving my hands and my purse. Oh,
it's too easy to spend money on a card, do you think?
Exactly, it's too easy. And also, one spends things, on an instant buy, unnecessary things, and in the end you lose sort of, you've forgotten exactly what you've spent. So I find spending on daily things, like groceries and so on, cash, I find that is a great discipline for me.
Okay, all right. Thanks for calling today, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Look at that time already. It's 12:30.
NFU Mutual has supported the Isle of Man's agricultural shows for over 40 years. They're always great social events for the whole community and an excellent opportunity for us to meet you, our customers. So do come along and meet our friendly team at the NFU Mutual tent for a quote regarding your motor, home or business insurance. Look out for NFU Mutual at this year's agricultural show.
You get more than you think, but all that you need when you
shop local with EVF.
Because your local EVF filling station isn't just a place for fuel, it's where you can get delicious food to go. Chilled drinks, wines and beers, barbecue and summer essentials, from ice creams to surfboards, plus a great range of local products. Vannin Fuels. Fill up, fuel up and get all you need to go. Open till late.
Shop local with EVF.
We all use technology in our cars and homes. Why wouldn't you embrace it for running your business? At Nicola Bowker & Co, we help you understand the latest business tech allowing you to spend more time running your business. Nicola Bowker & Co.
I began to struggle with the stairs, but I didn't want to leave our family home. So my daughter told me about Acorn Stair Lifts and their new showroom in Douglas. I was able to try the stair lifts and find the right one for me and the home I love. They were so friendly. The whole process was hassle-free and they offered the whole package from installation to servicing. Choose the island's first choice for stair lifts. Acorn Stair Lifts, South Quay, Douglas.
Call Acorn Stair Lifts now on 672 414 or call into our Douglas showroom.
Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio. And this weekend, you could win a home study desk and a chair, plus an amazing back-to-school bundle from Office World. Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like. Then make sure you're listening to Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning, when we'll be announcing the winner. Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line. Daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio.
27 minutes before 1. Peter's with us. Hello, Peter.
Oh, hello. It's Peter Murcott here. I'll tell you why I always give my full name, by the way. When I first came to the Isle of Man, I didn't know anybody. And I was introduced to people, this is Dave and this is Susan. And then I discovered that the telephone directory didn't go under Dave and Susan. And so I was introduced to people. I hadn't a clue whom I'd met. And it took me quite a long time to get to know folk. That's the first reason. The second reason is we live in an anonymous society. And I think that it's long overdue for us to start becoming real people again, identifiable people. So that's why I always give you my name. And now, on this cashless society, Steve, he's quite right to raise this point about these online surveys. That is what tends to happen now. There tends to be an assumption, I think, that everybody is online, and so there's an underclass who really get missed out. Every sympathy with him. However, let me say I'm not online at all, but I have completed the survey. What one needs to do is one could go and get a paper copy. You could always try the Tynwald office, or Department of Infrastructure, I think, is running this, because that's where I returned my submission. They were incredibly helpful. They're in the St George's Court, first floor. No, you've got to go up some steps. Yeah, when you go in up the stairs, I found them very, very helpful and obliging indeed. So I suggest people go and get their survey form from there. Do fill it in. One of the results that will follow, if ever we were foolish enough to go cashless, is there would be a rapid increase in fraud. If you listen to Moneybox on BBC Radio 4 at 12 o'clock each Saturday, you'll hear that fraud has gone up enormously. And one of the reasons is because everything is being done electronically. So that would be one direct result that will follow. There's lots of others, of course. There are some people, it requires a bank account, of course, and there are some people who, for one reason or another, can't have a bank account. And so what are they going to do if we go to a cashless society? But there's just a couple of many, many reasons why we shouldn't go down that rather foolish route.
And I wonder what your opinion is of the physicality of often giving money. Every shop you go in nowadays, every pub will have charity boxes, normally 2 or 3 charity boxes, and often the physicality of putting something into somewhere, giving money to people. Do you think that's still something that we as human beings enjoy and like?
Well, Manx people and the Manx Society is noted for being extremely generous with regard to charities, and I think that is one of the consequences that will be felt if you once go away from cash. Yes, I mean, I think that people will put their hand in the pocket, and the Isle of Man is noted for its generosity, and I think they'll have more difficulties. The other thing is, I have observed that as often as not, where people are using these other means, they hold up the queue. I've been many times in a queue. Somebody fishes a card out, then they stick it in, then they don't quite know what to type in, then they've forgotten their number, and then they type in again, and then, oh dear, it comes, we've got no, that card doesn't work, we've got to go to another one. And all the time, if, for example, you haven't got half an hour to spare, you're stuck in the queue, whereas you hand your money over, and you get your change, and the transaction is done. So I don't think it's particularly efficient. There is one other point, that if you're going to go into this business of putting everything into thin air on your phone, which I see folk doing, and holding up their phone against some mysterious thing, and then up pops a little bill. I watched with fascination this morning where that happened. You're going to have a phone. And so that's going to immediately put an unnecessary cost on people who've then got to go and buy the necessary technology, unless they go to the cards. And then you've got the danger of losing them when you're putting your hand in your pocket. I think there's lots of reasons against doing away with cash, and I think it should stay, and I've said so. And yeah, go and get your form from the Department of Infrastructure or wherever, and do fill it in. And if someone's short, can't get one, anyone who knows where I live, if they call by, I'll give them one, because I've got a spare one here at home.
OK, all right, thanks, Peter.
OK, thanks, bye-bye.
Good to hear from you. 22 minutes before 1. A note in from Roy, who said, Andy, so now these cards will be called beer cards. Years ago, when I was in the Royal Navy, we called money beer tokens. Is that the same thing? I suppose so. And also a message in from Chris, who says, is it true the Advanced Driving Institute on the Isle of Man has gone now, and you can't take an advanced driving test? Is that true? It was always possible to become an advanced driver on the Isle of Man. I just wonder, is that true, that is it the Institute of Advanced Drivers, is that gone on the Isle of Man? Yesterday, I don't know whether you heard, it was on Arbury Castle, Town of Malude. Jason Morehouse and Tim Glover were in, and they reckon the DESC, the Department of Education, Sport and Culture, has been criticised for a lack of transparency about this ongoing review to the teaching of sex education in the Isle of Man secondary schools. Jason and Tim said there are too many unanswered questions about the second phase of this. Independent external investigators were brought in to conduct a review after allegations about the way the curriculum was being rolled out at QE2 High School. Now, the DSC minister told Timwell the second report was due out by the last day of the summer term. Of course, that's come and gone. A date those MHKs, Jason and Tim, say just appears to have just slipped by.
Isle of Man Creamery are proud exhibitors at our agricultural shows with exclusive show offers. So come along and say hello, taste some samples, and take home a piece of Isle of Man Creamery. We're in the Definite Producers Marquee.
Here are Tim and Jason.
I've been in contact with the Minister, and Stage 2 should be coming out in the next few days. It was rather disappointing that she spoke to Manx Radio and also in Tynwald about it coming out on the last day of term, and that did not happen. When I went for clarification, it turned out that was a date when the report's been handed over. So they've had it now a couple of weeks, and hopefully there will be the update. I'm slightly concerned that the specialists we've actually got looking at the investigation are specialists in terms of RSE teaching, and really the second and third stages are going for that. And it was quite a shock that the last line of the final answer that the Minister gave in Tynwald was there might actually be the need for a Stage 3 report, and I was kind of trying to get another question. I was halted in terms of that's your limit, but it will be interesting in terms of what comes out in the coming days in terms of where we are with regard to the Stage 2, but also what comes next. But I think it's really important we have good training, we have specialists, and in terms of the regional material that's being taught, it is quite concerning. We need to look at that in terms of what's the need, and just have a thoughtful, considered conversation perhaps behind closed doors, but really coming out with clarity, because at the moment there have been too many unanswered questions, and we've gone for 12 months when some key parts of the curriculum haven't been taught, and teaching parents have been on to me saying this should have been taught, there are gaps, and we need to move this forward as fast as we can.
It needs to be transparent all round as well, that's the key, and needs to be back on the agenda in September, but at the moment it just seems to be very cloak and dagger, and we're not getting full information and what the content is, etc. And parents need to be comfortable as much as teachers and the schools.
Okay, it's gone on too long. You're actually looking at the start for new academic year, and we've not got that clarity. We've not got anywhere close to stage 3.
Albury Castle Town and Maloo MHK's Jason Morehouse and Tim Glover speaking about this second phase of the investigation into the teaching of RSE. It's called Relationships and Sex Education Curriculum. And now we've asked the DSC to confirm when the second report will be published, and at the moment we're waiting for an answer, and as soon as we know, then we'll tell you. I just wonder what your thoughts are. If you've a parent or a carer, if you have somebody going back to school who will be receiving that part of the curriculum 4 weeks tomorrow. Schools go back 4 weeks tomorrow. I don't say not a moment too soon. Both your guests yesterday, says Dick, said the idea of a wind farm site had been rushed through, but in David Ashford's last budget in February 22, both Tim and Jason voted in favour of his budget, which included putting £25 million for climate change initiatives. So they were both keen back in 2022 to put so much money into it, but 18 months later, when the government and Manx Utilities are trying to do something, they reckoned it was being rushed through after a year of planning's already gone in. Now, the budget has nearly doubled since, and if we don't do anything with the money other than buying a bit of draft excluder, we'll have to pay for the Liverpool ferry terminal at that rate of growth, says Dick. I wonder what your thoughts are with that. There was quite a bit came out yesterday, not least the fact Jason Morehouse and Tim Glover said that if the wind farm is in the south, the one at Iristaines they're talking about, then the solar farm that's proposed at Bilown won't go through because there's not enough space on the grid for both to punch that electricity into the grid. Interesting. Steve says, regarding access to cash, government survey, firstly, it's an online survey which targets a digital audience, so it's unfair and biased. And there are lots of people who aren't online, and most of those online don't know anything about the survey. It should be for everybody, not even in the courier. And the government's using underhand tactics, says Steve, on 906, to get a result that they want. I honestly think the government is selling Manx people down the river. And a message in just to say turbine blades from Castletown via the Ballamoda to the Shoulder Road and past the Round Table will give access to the proposed site, avoiding narrow roads. So turbine blades, and remember they're talking about one of these proposals for the south. If they go for the higher volume of electricity generated, we'll have a marine ramp in Castletown. Now, it will be a new marine ramp. It may be an extension to the pier, or it may be another one. We've not yet seen the plans, but you reckon turbine blades, and they're long things, via the Ballamoda to Shoulder Road, past the Round Table, giving access to the proposed site, avoiding narrow roads. But how are you going to get from the dock, the pier in Castletown, actually through Castletown? Love to know it if you can find a way. A message in just to say a holidaymaker to the islands made allegations on social media that a well-known hotel on Douglas Promenade was occupied by refugees. She said at no time did the tour operator pre-warn her of the situation. Her whole stay, she felt very uncomfortable and won't return. She supplied her name and details in this post on social media. If anybody spots that, by all means, tell me. Just a new note for you, by the way. If you are looking to build or extend after December of this year, remember, no fossil fuel heating.
Show the garden who's boss with Riley's Garden Centre. Tractors, tools, the latest cordless equipment from the island's dealers for Honda, Stihl, Stiga and Echo, plus Traeger Parrot grills to help you enjoy the results. Visit rileys.co.im.
Come together for a night of pure Beatle nostalgia with the Bootleg Beatles. Journey through the swinging 60s with the world's most successful and longest running tribute, bringing the sounds and the atmosphere of the Beatles to life for one night only. Book now at villagaiety.com or on 600 555. The Bootleg Beatles, August 10th at the Villa Marina.
Tonight here on Manx Radio at 6 o'clock, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark, for the new series of Countryside.
We take a look back at a very successful Southern District agricultural show.
I went along to the Sulby Horticultural Society show to witness a wonderful carving of a kingfisher which won the main prize. Plus I chat to the secretary and a special guest who opened the event.
That's all in Countryside tonight here on Manx Radio at 6 o'clock. And don't forget, you can download and subscribe to the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
13 minutes now before 1. Lovely lunchtime on the Isle of Man. Lots of blue sky, and Elizabeth's with us. Hi, Elizabeth.
Yes, we have lovely sunshine, which will provide solar energy for the island. Now, instead of the government spending 42 million erecting all these wind turbines, why can't they put solar panels on people's roof at a reasonable price?
Well, I would imagine if you divide £40 million up, they could probably give us the solar panels free.
Well, they couldn't they really? But I mean, they wouldn't do something like that because they won't be making money, will they? If we have solar panels on our roofs, which at the moment are very, very expensive, not to mention the price of them and the installation, well, we wouldn't need these wind turbines, would we?
Well, what about from October onwards, though, Elizabeth, when it's getting dark at 3:30 and not light until 9 o'clock in the morning?
But apparently, only a few hours of daylight still work the solar panels. They don't have to have sunshine, strong sunshine. Apparently, they work just with daylight, and doesn't have to be scorching hot.
Have you got solar panels on your house?
Don't be silly, I can't afford something like that. I'd love them, but I can't afford. Say I got a new roof on 6 years ago, and I'm still fighting the builder to put it right. I have water coming in everywhere. So solar panels. I'd like a nice roof that didn't leak.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you.
Good to hear from you. Right, plans for new buildings and extensions in the Isle of Man are going to need to include low-carbon heating from 2024. May I point that out to you? 2024 starts in a little over 3 months' time. The rule was actually due to come into force last week, but it got pushed back. Amy Griffiths has been looking at the story.
From the 1st of January, all applications for new buildings and extensions containing fossil fuel heating systems will be rejected. The move is said to help towards the island's push to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. It's to prepare for a legal ban coming into force from the 1st of January 2025, which will make it illegal to install a fossil fuel heating system in new buildings and extensions, including where planning permission has already been granted. The changes were due to come into force last week, but government pushed them back to ensure the public are prepared. Plans to move away from these heating systems were announced in 2020 as part of the consultation for the Climate Change Bill. Chair of Climate Change Transformation Board Daphne Kane MHK says rejecting plans first before making them illegal will allow for a transition period. She adds it'll have a significant impact on reducing carbon emissions and will ensure anyone buying a new home is future-proofed. Around 200 new homes are built on the island every year.
This is the future coming towards us. Did you hear, Amy? illegal to install fossil fuel heating systems in new builds and extensions from January. You got it? A coal-fired Arga, apparently. Is that included? Are Argas, remember, only posh people have Argas, and even posher people have Ray-Bans, apparently. So are new Ray-Bans and Argas included in fossil fuel? I'm just asking for a friend, that's all. David, by the way, Chris says, your subject access requests are under data protection law, not freedom of information law. So the people who might or might not have made a complaint about David or any other Oncom commissioners also have personal data. Apparently, Mr. Moulton has made freedom of information requests. So those subject as under data protection law, and the others under freedom of information law. Get it? Got it? Good. I fully agree with Steve, says Texter 005, and 0366, keep the cash. We go to the farm shop every week, says Peter. They only accept cash, so these places will disappear if it goes cashless. Also, I think the dry cleaners in St Paul Square in Ramsey doesn't take cards either. So cash there as well. Sharon said, I use cash most of the time. I can budget better with cash. Does it help if you, there's something tactile about cash. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can count it, you can put it into separate piles on the kitchen table. Is that something that you do, or is that just terribly out of date? Andy says the Information Commissioner's investigation into the recent Cabinet Office data breach, what's the outcome? Who was responsible? What's happened to the individual who committed the data breach? Andy, they haven't said. Yeah, and DM on 023 says you need cash for a Chinese takeaway. You can pay by card, by the way. I use cash most of the time. I only use a card if I spend a large amount. I hate the idea of going cashless, says Elizabeth. It's not about using cash 100% of the time, says 133. It's about having a choice. And the people who are taking that choice away from us, so boycott the card-only places. And Brian says, during COVID, I paid for everything by card. I have two incomes, one monthly, the other 4 weekly, which can be difficult to manage. I've now gone back to using cash and get the same amount of cash every week. I find it much easier to handle. I just wonder what you think. If we have no cash, here's one thing. I talked about using charity boxes, and if you pay for cash, pay with cash for something, and maybe you get 20p, 15p change, do you fall into the habit, I do, of just sticking the money into a charity box on the counter? Obviously, you don't want a pocket full of shrapnel. So here's another one that just says, if we have no cash, how will we pay the tooth fairy? Try explaining that to children. What do? Put a prepaid loaded debit card under their pillow. Lloyd's Pharmacy Governor Cyril Douglas aren't taking cash for purchases from the 17th of August. Is this rejection of cash actually permitted? Says L. And I want to go to, I think it's Steve. Hi, Steve.
How you doing? You okay?
Good, thanks.
Very quickly, I know you're busy. I just think if it just goes cashless, you're going to lose a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses won't put up with it. It'll just fold. It's not worth trading. Cash is king. At the end of the day, you need cash as well. It's pathetic. It's like, mess with something that doesn't need messing with. Why try and change? Why the government's trying to get and ruin this? Everything they're doing is just going back. This society we live in is getting crazy.
Well, it's Steve, one thing that's absolutely certain is the banks hate cash because they have to have people to count the cash, and obviously they want to cut their head count. So a lot of this is coming from banks.
Yeah, honestly, it's a crazy world we're living in, and if it does go cashless, there'll be that many businesses say it's not worth trading. We're closing the doors, and then we'll start seeing we're losing a lot of businesses, and it will happen. It really will. Honestly.
Okay. All right, Steve. Appreciate that. Good to hear from you. I believe banks, says G, want to close all Isle of Man branches. The government doesn't want the flack when they close, so the government wants to consult on scrapping cash, so everything is digital. Well, it's no doubt whatsoever. A lot of the bank branches have absolutely disappeared, and those. But then again, it's not just restricted to the Isle of Man. Everywhere, banks are disappearing. Physical bricks and mortar banks are disappearing, and banks don't like cash. They simply don't like it because it costs money to hold it, costs money to count it, it costs money to transport it. Not long ago, says Robbie, back from Thailand and Bangkok, 99% of people are wearing masks, and they're all paying with phones, a phone app. I asked in bars and restaurants, the staff must be missing out on tips. The answer is no. They put service charges, so you're paying even if you don't want to, and the staff get it. Wow. Pattaya, 1.5 hours down the road, no masks, so you pay with cash. So that's the situation. Even tips get paid. Keep the cash, says Coops. Never know when these government surveys can be completed. I've always assumed the surveys are sent to people who will give them the answers that they want, says 100. Well, as Peter said, you can actually find these surveys if you go to St George's House. I just want to quickly flag up for you the annual general meeting of the Liberal Vannin Party is going to be held at the Legion Club in Douglas next Monday at 7 o'clock. It's open to all members and non-members of Liberal Vannin, the political party. If you want to attend and take part in discussions, policy proposals on education, environment, finance, health and social care and housing are all tabled for debate. That's next Monday, the 14th of August, at the Manx Legion Club in Douglas. It's the annual general meeting of Liberal Vannin. That's it. Thanks for calling in today. Thanks for being involved. Thanks for paying attention. And thanks for being there. Mannin Line returns tomorrow with another open line. Thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
WINT